Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Agatha of the Vile Cauldron. So Agatha is a 2-mana Gruul commander, and she says activated abilities of creatures you control cost X less to activate, where X is her power. This effect can't reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1. And she's got 6 other creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and haste until end of turn. So it is worth noting that her own ability is inherently already reduced by her power, so this is actually only costs 5. So the big thing here is going to be to get Agatha's power higher so that we can activate either her own ability or various other abilities of creatures in our deck for very cheap, and then generate infinite combos in that regard. Or just simply have very useful abilities that now cost as little as only 1 mana. So to start off with, we've got a lot of cards that are ways of permanently increasing Agatha's power, like Rancor, Audacity, Bristly Bill, etc. A lot of these cards here are just based on being equipment or auras that will go on to Agatha to increase her power or give her +1 counters. We also have a few cards here like Captivating Crew that can threaten creatures for 4, but hypothetically, if we get Agatha to a higher power level, so like a lot of these cards give +2, so if we put one of those on Agatha, then this only costs 1. So for every red mana we have, we can threaten creatures. Elder of Laurels is another good one. Target creature gets +X, where X is the number of creatures you control. And it's also worth noting that this ability can, of course, target Agatha to increase her power, and then this ability becomes less. Alana and Alina Partners is another way to get increased power. And then Tyvar the Pummeler, which for 3 and 2 green, creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, so at least 3, but then of course, again, if we increase Agatha's, we can activate this ability for only 2 green mana, and hypothetically activate it multiple times to severely overrun the board. Now, as far as our combos go, we have, of course, the old Devoted Druid plus Luxior for infinite green. Duskwatch Recruiter can be as low as 1 mana to activate to look at our top 3 and get a creature. We've got some other cards like Magus of the Candelabra to untap our lands, and then this is going to get reduced per Agatha's power. Marvin can also be a second version of Agatha, and Agatha's Soul Cauldron, of course, can not only put a counter on Agatha, but can copy abilities of anything else we might have had that have gone to the graveyard since then. So Staff of Domination and Umbral Mantle are really the big mana increasing combos here, so any of these cards paired with something like Priest of Titania or Sanctum Weaver or any other creature that can produce multiple mana can potentially untap that creature infinitely, and then we can generate infinite mana. And it's worth noting that, of course, any infinite mana combo can be dumped into Agatha's ability to infinitely overrun our field. We also have Sylvanas' Invoker, 8 mana to untap target land you control, and it becomes an 8/8 with trample and haste. So obviously this can be highly reduced and can be very little mana to activate, potentially turning all of our lands into 8/8 tramplers. But this also goes infinite with cards like Gaia's Cradle and Nykthos, because as long as you have enough mana being generated off of those lands, you can activate this on the same land over and over to keep untapping it and generate infinite mana in that way as well. And so it's also worth noting with other cards here, such as Duskwatch Recruiter, if we have infinite mana, we can churn through our whole deck and find whatever creatures we want. Magus, of course, also goes infinite hypothetically with Staff and Umbral Mantle. And then Propagator Drone over here allows you to create Eldrazi Scions that can be sacked for colorless. So if you do have enough mana or ways of converting colorless into green, you can hypothetically make infinite Scions as well. Outside of that, a little bit of card draw. Skullclamp Sylvan Library 1 ring. Soulbright Flamekin is a card that works particularly well in this deck, since this ability will always be reduced to only 1 mana with Agatha in play. So for just 3 mana, we can activate this and gain 8 red. Pretty straightforward lands, not too much to see here. Obviously, Gaia's Cradle and Nykthos are part of combos. And we do have Pendelhaven for certain things. Obviously, Pendelhaven can target our commander, Agatha, to increase her power as well, so that's another thing we can do. A lot of protection. Obviously, we don't want Agatha or any of our other combo pieces to get countered or killed. And any protection that increases the power of our commander, like Commander's Plate, are obviously better than normal. Same thing goes for Guardian Augmenter. We do have Invigorate here as a pump spell. For free, we can give +4 to Agatha. In general, I found that the pump spells tend to not be that great because oftentimes you need Agatha pumped over multiple turns, and you often don't have exactly enough to go off in the same turn, but you might have enough to maybe set up for the next turn or just get a lot of value. So Invigorate here being the free pump spell, you could include the other pump spells if you wanted to, but I think Invigorate alone is fine. Then some pretty straightforward mana dorks with some standouts being things like Biophagus. If we cast Agatha off of this, it'll come in with a +1 counter. And then, as stated previously, more cards that generate multiple mana when you tap them, so not just Priest of Titania and Sanctum Weaver, but also Selvala, Fanatic of Ronus, and to a lesser extent Incubation Druid, which also goes very well with some of the cards in our deck, like Agatha's Soul Cauldron, for example. Some removal spells, with one of the highlights being Gorilla Shaman, since this ability can also be reduced by Agatha. Some tutors, Imperial Recruiter to go find creatures, as well as Finale of Devastation to be a payoff for infinite mana. And then we have our untap effects, Awakening and Seedborn Muse. So obviously, we have a number of cards that have activated abilities, so we would like to be able to keep using them one turn after the other. Untapping all of our creatures and lands can help do that. So with all that said, that is going to do it for Agatha of the Vile Cauldron in EDH.